Well, this will be the first time Robinson will be appearing in the actual courtroom. Dina, how significant is it that he will physically be in front of the judge?
In a typical case, not significant. We have seen cameras in courtrooms and for pretrial hearings all the time in this country. But in this case, very significant. As we know, this is the very first time this case, beyond the initial announcement that he was the one being indicted, we have seen hearings and documents under seal, very little information to the public. So the fact that he's going to be there today is big for this particular case.
All right, so according to court documents, this hearing is to review the case status with the lawyers to weigh in on concerns regarding media attention as this trial progresses. Brian laid that out a bit for us, but I want to start with that first part. His attorney is expected to say whether Robinson will seek a preliminary hearing. Dina, talk to us about the purpose of that preliminary hearing and why a defendant would either want one or would choose to waive that.
Well, preliminary hearing is helpful because they get a preview of the prosecutor's case. The prosecution has to be able to present enough evidence to say that his charge, his indictment is valid. I mean, we have seen, though, the prosecutor release quite a bit of information already, right? Talking about video footage at a fast food restaurant. They say they have a confession. So it's possible it's a little bit less beneficial in a case like this, where the prosecution's kind of already given a lot of that information out there. The other reason maybe defense wouldn't want to is because they're going to be playing their hand, right? They're going to be poking the holes into the prosecution evidence now that maybe they want to save for trial. But that's the calculus.
All right, so let's shift now to the concerns regarding media attention. We know that attorneys have gone back and forth on what Robinson would be allowed to wear in the courtroom. He will be allowed to wear civilian clothes for all of the pre-trial stuff, whether or not the media would be able to use cameras. Just talk to us more about what all the judge is taking into consideration, considering that there is such a massive amount of attention on this case.
You had the montage that you showed earlier, including the president talking about this case, shows the massive public interest in this and the really strong argument that the press has in the courtroom today to try to say we should have access to this court. As we know, our court system is public. Anybody at any time could go into any trial and watch it. In a situation like this, there's just not enough room. O.J. Simpson was the very first test of this years ago, where we had the first national trial live streamed, and he was acquitted. And the calculus always has to be for the judge, can the defendant get a fair trial? Since O.J. Simpson was acquitted, it started like a bonanza, let's say, of courtroom watching trials. But since then, we've seen high-profile defendant after high-profile defendant still get an acquittal. Kyle Rittenhouse not that long ago. So it's hard to say that just because you have cameras in the courtroom, a defendant can't get a fair trial, because we have seen over and over not to be the case. And here, the limited information has created conspiracy theories, distrust in the government. That weighs even more in favor of the press's argument than maybe a true crime type case where the press also wants access.
All right, so we know that Robinson cannot be photographed or shown in shackles. Dina, I want you to talk about the logic with that, especially, when we see suspects accused of murder in shackles all the time. Prime example, accused CEO killer, who's also, having a preliminary, or not preliminary, but he's having a pre-trial hearing right now that's been ongoing. We see him in shackles, and we've seen him in shackles all the time.
Well, it's not that unusual. I mean, to your point, Mangione, he is wearing civilian clothes in that trial. The judge is trying to balance public's interest and right to know what's happening in the courtroom with a defendant's constitutional right to a fair trial. And this is a very easy solution, let's say, is if you are showing somebody over and over and over in their jailhouse garments in shackles, you are just giving a presumption that he's guilty. And it's taking that away, let's say, having him be in civilian clothes, having him not be in shackles, is not harming the public's right to know, right to see him. it is just maybe helping not create that presumption of guilt. So that's a very simple rule in that our public right to know isn't being affected, but his right to a fair trial is perhaps being more protected with it.
Do you anticipate that today's proceedings will be quick? Is it going to move along? Kind of what are you anticipating?
This is, I think, going to be uh, it's tricky. I mean, this is a tricky case. I think the press has got to have so many arguments. Like I said, not only do you have just the basic right to know this case, but the national attention, the conspiracy theories at the FBI. There are so many layers here that the press can argue. And as we know, that it looks like the defense attorney is going to be arguing that they don't want the cameras in the courtroom. So we will see. There's also going to be a reference to the prior. There was a sealed hearing prior that I think if they can't go into that. This is our first chance really to see how the players, let's say, will be at work here. It's always hard to guess how long a hearing is going to be, but this is, very important. Will we know how this case transpires or not? Will the darkness, I think, will lead to more conspiracy theories. And so today's outcome is very important.
It really is. All right, Dina Dahl, thank you so much for your insight today.